What if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side? Jack Miller never imagined he'd be sitting in first class on a plane, not because he was wealthy or famous, but because of a last-minute upgrade that felt like a cruel joke. He looked around nervously, unsure if he belonged in this world of polished shoes and hushed conversations. The plane was settling into a smooth hum, and Jack's thoughts raced faster than the engines. Ahead of him sat a quiet man, unremarkable at first glance, a man who didn't mingle or flash a smile, just kept his gaze fixed outside the window. The other passengers whispered and glanced sideways, and Jack overheard a man nearby, brash and loud, mockingly calling the quiet one the invisible billionaire. The words stung with cruelty, yet the quiet man didn't react. Jack felt a strange pull of curiosity, mixed with pity. Who was this man who sat silently as if the world's noise didn't touch him? The cabin lights dimmed, and Jack's mind buzzed with questions he couldn't answer. What if this quiet man was more than he appeared? What if mocking someone could change your life forever? Jack realized then that sometimes, the biggest stories hide in plain sight. As the plane lifted off, so did a small hope inside him, a hope that this encounter might be the start of something new, something better. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? Jack asked himself, watching the quiet man who seemed untouched by the world's noise, yet something told him this was just the beginning. Jack Miller wasn't always the man who sat nervously in first class wondering about a quiet stranger. Growing up in a small town in Ohio, Jack was the kind of kid who dreamed big but stumbled often. His father had left when Jack was only 10, leaving behind a trail of broken promises and a silence heavier than any words. That absence shaped Jack in ways he never fully understood. He carried it like a shadow, a constant reminder that some people you love most might disappear without warning. His mother worked 2 jobs, trying to keep the family afloat, but the strain showed in the tired lines around her eyes and the quiet sighs that filled their small house at night. Jack was left to look after his younger sister, Emma, who was bright and fiercely determined, even at the age of 12. She was his anchor, the reason he refused to give up, even when life seemed intent on pushing him down. School was never easy for Jack. He wasn't the smartest or the most popular, but he had a stubborn streak and a heart that refused to quit. He worked odd jobs after school, delivering newspapers, mowing lawns, anything to help the family. The town whispered about Jack's family like they were broken people, but Emma never listened to those whispers. She believed in Jack the way no one else did, and that belief kept him moving forward. When Jack graduated high school, he had little more than hope in his pocket. He wanted to leave Ohio behind, to find a life bigger than the narrow streets and quiet nights of his hometown. But ambition came with its own kind of pain. Jack's first jobs in the city were grueling: barista, warehouse worker, and sometimes nothing at all when bills went unpaid and doors closed. He met people who promised the world but gave him little in return, friendships that fizzled out, and lovers who left without explanation. Yet through it all, Emma's voice was a constant in his mind: "You can do this, Jack. You have to." The love between them was unspoken but fierce, the kind that held them both up when everything else was falling apart. Jack's career finally seemed to be gaining traction when he landed a job at a startup in San Francisco. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, and for a moment, it felt like the future might be different. He moved into a tiny apartment, the walls filled with dreams and the smell of instant coffee. But the startup world was ruthless, and after a year, the company collapsed under financial strain. Jack found himself jobless, the savings drained, and the future uncertain once again. The day he got the news, he sat on the cold floor of his apartment, the silence pressing in around him. The phone call to Emma was hard, but she promised they'd get through it together. Jack's pride battled with desperation, but he took what work he could find. Waiting tables, delivering packages, anything to keep going. It was during this time that Jack received the unexpected offer to fly first class for a business conference in New York. The company sponsoring his attendance had upgraded his seat, a gesture he barely understood but accepted with mixed feelings. On the plane, surrounded by strangers who seemed effortlessly at ease, Jack felt out of place. That was when his eyes kept drifting to the quiet man sitting a few rows ahead, a man who seemed both tired and untouchable, as if carrying the weight of worlds in his silence. Jack's curiosity grew, especially as he overheard the snide remarks from a loud passenger named Greg, who mocked the quiet man with cruel jokes and sharp words. Jack wanted to step in but hesitated, unsure of how to confront such arrogance. The quiet man didn't respond, his calmness only deepening the mystery. Jack wondered who he was and what stories lay behind his quiet demeanor. The hours passed slowly, filled with unspoken tension and Jack's restless thoughts. When the quiet man finally spoke, his voice low and steady, Jack felt a spark of something unexpected, a connection, a hope that this encounter might teach him more than any conference ever could. The plane cut through clouds, and Jack thought about his journey, about the years of struggle and the moments of light that kept him moving. This trip, this flight, felt like a crossroads, a chance to rewrite his story. The quiet man's presence was a silent challenge to Jack's own fears and doubts. The flight attendant's subtle nod to the quiet man hinted at respect hidden beneath the surface. Jack's mind raced with possibilities. What if this man was someone who had faced his own battles and won? What if Jack could learn from him? The hum of the engines was a backdrop to Jack's awakening. He pulled out his phone and typed a message to Emma, telling her he was okay and that something important was happening, even if he couldn't explain it yet. He looked out the window, the world below shrinking as the plane soared higher. The quiet man turned toward him briefly, eyes meeting Jack's with a faint smile, almost as if inviting trust. Jack felt a warmth spread through him, a flicker of hope in a life that had too often been cold and uncertain. The rest of the flight passed in a blur of thoughts and stolen glances. Jack wondered how many times people had judged the quiet man wrongly, how many stories had gone untold behind silent faces. He promised himself that he wouldn't be like those passengers who mocked without understanding. The plane began its descent, and Jack felt a mix of anticipation and nervousness. The city lights of New York twinkled below, a vast landscape of possibility. Jack took a deep breath and whispered to himself, maybe this is where it all changes. The quiet man, still calm and composed, gathered his belongings. Jack caught his name tag as it slipped from his pocket, a small detail, but it read Elon Musk. Jack blinked, heart pounding. The man he had watched all flight, the one mocked and misunderstood, was someone he'd only seen on headlines and documentaries, the billionaire, the innovator, the man who had shaped the future. Everything shifted in that moment. The quiet man wasn't just a stranger, he was a symbol of perseverance, genius, and vulnerability all wrapped into one. Jack realized how little he truly knew about success and failure, about the stories behind public faces. He felt a surge of emotion, admiration, confusion, and an unexpected kinship. As the plane touched down, Jack whispered again, what if losing everything isn't the end, but the start of something greater? The night air was cool and filled with possibility. Jack's journey was just beginning, and somehow, the quiet man's presence promised that no matter how hard life hit, hope was never far behind. Jack had never seen anything like it, the way the quiet man moved through the cabin, unnoticed but somehow commanding attention. Passengers either ignored him or whispered behind his back, but Jack's eyes followed every subtle motion. The quiet man, Elon Musk, sat with his hands folded, eyes distant but focused, as if he carried worlds on his shoulders. Greg, the loud and entitled man seated nearby, couldn't resist turning the flight into his personal stage. Hey, invisible billionaire, Greg sneered loudly enough for others to hear, how's it feel to be just another lost soul trying to hide from the spotlight? Laughter bubbled among a few passengers, but Elon said nothing, his expression unreadable. Jack felt a knot tighten in his chest. He hated bullies, especially ones who took pleasure in tearing others down. The way Greg mocked Elon wasn't just rude, it was cruel, an attempt to strip a man of his dignity. Jack wanted to say something but didn't know what, and the silence only made the scene heavier. Elon's quietness wasn't weakness, it was something else, something Jack couldn't yet understand. As the plane cruised, Greg's mocking grew more pointed, insulting Elon's achievements, his personality, even his clothes. "Look at you," Greg sneered, pretending to be modest when everyone knows you're just full of yourself. The flight attendant tried to intervene politely, but Greg brushed her off. Jack watched as the other passengers shifted uncomfortably, some avoiding eye contact, others biting their lips to stay silent. The tension was palpable, and Jack's stomach churned with frustration. He wondered why Elon didn't fight back. Was it humility? Exhaustion? Or maybe a lesson in silence Jack hadn't yet learned? Memories of his own struggles flashed in Jack's mind, the times he had been mocked, dismissed, or overlooked. He knew the sting of words that cut deep. But Elon's silence seemed to hold a different kind of power, like a shield that no amount of taunting could penetrate. Jack found himself wanting to know more about this man. Who was he beyond the headlines and tweets? What battles had he fought in the quiet corners of his life? The flight attendant returned with a tray of drinks and offered one to Elon, who accepted with a small nod. Jack noticed how carefully Elon moved, almost as if every action was deliberate, controlled. It was clear this man was used to scrutiny, to living life under a microscope. Yet here he was, just a man among strangers, vulnerable in his own way. Jack's mind raced with questions, but the flight was too tense for casual conversation. Instead, he watched, waiting for a sign, a crack in the armor. Somewhere deep inside, Jack felt a connection forming, two men from different worlds, both carrying scars and hopes. Greg's voice broke through the silence again, louder this time. "Hey, Elon, why don't you tell us what you really think? Or are billionaires too scared to speak plain truth?" A few passengers chuckled uneasily. Elon looked up slowly, his eyes meeting Greg's with a calm that stunned everyone. "Sometimes," Elon said quietly but clearly, "the loudest voice isn't the one that's heard the most." The cabin fell silent. Greg blinked, caught off guard, and for a moment, even the flight attendants paused. Jack felt a surge of admiration. The quiet man wasn't just silent, he was choosing his moments carefully, speaking only when it mattered. Jack wondered how many times Elon had been underestimated because of his quiet nature. The flight continued, the tension easing but the air still thick with unspoken questions. Jack thought about his own life, the moments when silence had been his refuge and when words had been his weapon. He realized that strength came in many forms, not just the loud and visible ones. As the plane crossed over the vast expanse of clouds, Jack's gaze drifted back to Elon, who now seemed less like a stranger and more like a man carrying the weight of the world with quiet grace. The rest of the passengers began to settle, some stealing glances, others whispering in hushed tones about the mysterious quiet man. Jack could see the flicker of respect growing, even among those who had mocked him earlier. The flight attendant brought over a newspaper, and Elon glanced at the headline, a story about his latest venture into space exploration. Jack noticed a flicker of weariness cross Elon's face. Despite all his success, the man looked tired, human. Jack's heart ached with empathy. Here was a man who had reached heights few could dream of, yet who carried burdens no one could see. The plane's soft lighting cast shadows across Elon's face, making him appear both fragile and unbreakable. Jack found himself wanting to speak, to break the silence between them. Gathering his courage, he leaned slightly forward and said, "Excuse me, I don't know if you want to talk, but I'm Jack." Elon looked up, surprised but welcoming. "Elon," he replied simply. That single exchange felt like the start of something important. Jack asked quietly, "What keeps you going when things get tough?" Elon's eyes held a depth that made Jack's question feel small, yet the answer was clear: purpose. "And the people who believe in me, even when I don't believe in myself." Jack nodded, understanding more than he expected. It wasn't fame or fortune that fueled Elon, it was something deeper, more human. The plane began its descent, and the quiet man's presence lingered in Jack's thoughts like a beacon. Jack felt a shift inside himself, a mix of hope and determination he hadn't known in years. He thought of Emma, his sister, and the promise he had made to keep moving forward for her sake. Maybe this chance encounter wasn't random after all. Maybe it was a reminder that even in silence, strength speaks volumes. As the wheels touched down, Jack caught Elon's eye one last time, and for a brief moment, a silent understanding passed between them. Jack realized that mocking someone, judging them without knowing their story, could blind you to the lessons they hold. The quiet man in first class wasn't just Elon Musk, he was a living testament to resilience, humility, and the power of hope. And Jack, for the first time in a long time, believed he could find that in himself too. As the plane's wheels kissed the tarmac, Jack's thoughts raced faster than the taxi to the gate. He felt the weight of the moment settling over him, heavier than the luggage he carried or the uncertainty ahead. Elon Musk stood calmly, collected like a man who had faced storms far worse than a flight full of judgmental strangers. Jack watched him move through the aisle, the quiet confidence in every step, and wondered what secrets lay beneath that calm exterior. The airport buzzed with life, announcements, hurried footsteps, the soft hum of rolling suitcases, and yet Jack felt strangely detached, as if caught between two worlds. His own world, filled with struggle and doubt, and Elon's, a realm of unshakable ambition and relentless drive. Jack followed silently, curious but respectful, until Elon disappeared behind the crowd. Alone now, Jack's mind replayed every word exchanged, every glance shared. The brief encounter was more than a conversation, it was a glimpse into a life carved from grit and vision. Jack thought about the countless nights he'd spent wondering if his efforts meant anything, if failure was just a stop on the way to success or the final destination. He realized that Elon's silence wasn't just a defense mechanism, it was a sign of strength, a reservoir of patience built over years of pushing boundaries. At the baggage claim, Jack's phone buzzed, a message from Emma. "How's the flight? Ready to take on the world?" Her faith in him was unshakable, and her words felt like a lifeline. Jack typed back quickly, meeting new kinds of people. Learning to listen more than speak. The arrival hall was crowded, a sea of faces lit by fluorescent lights and the promise of reunion or farewell. Jack felt small in the throng but also connected, part of a larger story unfolding beyond his own struggles. Outside, the city stretched out in all its chaotic glory, towering skyscrapers, flashing billboards, and the endless pulse of life. Jack had always dreamed of making it here, in the heart of opportunity, but fear often held him back. He took a deep breath and stepped into the stream of travelers, ready to face whatever came next. Days passed in a blur of meetings, introductions, and unfamiliar faces. Jack attended the conference with the usual mixture of excitement and anxiety, but the memory of Elon lingered like a guiding light. The quiet man's words echoed in his mind, purpose. And the people who believe in me, even when I don't believe in myself. Jack clung to that truth as he navigated awkward conversations and pitched ideas that felt fragile and incomplete. One evening, after a long day, Jack found himself wandering the city streets alone. The noise and neon felt overwhelming, but also alive, a reminder that dreams were born in chaos. As he passed a quiet cafe, a familiar figure sat inside, head bent over a laptop. It was Elon Musk. Jack hesitated, then stepped inside, the bell above the door announcing his arrival. Elon looked up, surprise flickering across his face before settling into a warm smile. "Jack," he said simply, gesturing to the empty seat. Jack sat, heart pounding but steady. "I didn't expect to see you here," he admitted. Elon chuckled softly. "Sometimes, you need to step away from the noise to hear yourself think." They talked for hours, sharing stories of failure, hope, and the unexpected turns life takes. Jack learned about Elon's early struggles, the sleepless nights, the failed projects, the weight of expectations. Elon wasn't just the man on magazine covers. He was a person shaped by losses and sacrifices, just like Jack. The conversation shifted to Jack's own journey, the small town, the broken family, the relentless drive to keep moving forward. Elon listened without judgment, his eyes reflecting a rare understanding. "You're stronger than you realize," Elon said quietly. "Sometimes, the hardest battles are the ones you fight inside." Jack felt a warmth he hadn't known in years. For the first time, he believed his past didn't define him, it was part of his story, but not the whole story. The night deepened, and the city outside buzzed with endless possibilities. Jack realized that meeting Elon was more than chance, it was a reminder that resilience and purpose could light even the darkest paths. As they parted ways, Elon handed Jack a small notebook. "Write your story," he said. "Not for anyone else, but for yourself. You might be surprised what you find." Jack held the notebook tightly, feeling the weight of potential in his hands. Walking back to his hotel, he looked up at the stars obscured by city lights and whispered, "Maybe this is where it all begins." The quiet man in first class wasn't just a stranger anymore. He was a catalyst, a symbol of hope and the unexpected strength found in silence. Jack felt ready to face whatever came next, knowing that every step forward was a victory in itself. The next morning, Jack woke early with a restless energy he hadn't felt in years. The city outside his window buzzed with life, but inside him was a quiet storm, hope mixed with doubt, possibility shadowed by fear. The notebook Elon had given him sat on the nightstand, its blank pages inviting him to write a new chapter of his life. Jack reached for it hesitantly, fingers trembling as he opened to the first page. What could he say that mattered? What story was worth telling? The weight of his past pressed down, memories of struggle and loss filling his mind like ghosts. But beneath the shadows, a small spark flickered. A promise that he could change, that the man he was now wasn't the man he had to be forever. He began to write, not knowing where the words would lead, but trusting the process would heal. Days turned into nights, and Jack found himself returning to the notebook again and again, pouring out his fears, dreams, and memories. Each word was a small victory against the silence that had held him captive for so long. Meanwhile, the conference swirled around him like a whirlwind. Jack attended sessions on innovation and leadership, but his real lesson came from conversations that went beyond business, discussions about resilience, failure, and the human spirit. He realized that success wasn't just about numbers or fame, it was about the journey, the scars, and the courage to keep moving forward. One afternoon, Jack received a message from Elon's assistant, inviting him to a private dinner with a small group of entrepreneurs and visionaries. The invitation felt like a door opening to a new world, a chance to learn and grow. Nervous but determined, Jack accepted. The restaurant was understated but elegant, filled with low lighting and the hum of quiet conversation. Jack spotted Elon across the room, already seated with a few others, and made his way over. Elon greeted him warmly, his presence calm but magnetic. The group included people from diverse backgrounds, scientists, artists, business leaders, all sharing a common passion for innovation and impact. The conversation flowed easily, touching on failures that led to breakthroughs, sacrifices made for dreams, and the balance between ambition and humility. Jack listened intently, absorbing every word. Elon shared stories from his past, moments when he had felt defeated, times when the world seemed to close in, and the small flickers of hope that kept him alive. Jack realized that behind the billionaire's image was a deeply human story of struggle and resilience. At one point, Elon turned to Jack and asked, "What's the hardest lesson you've learned?" Jack paused, thinking of his father's absence, the years of doubt, and the times he had nearly given up. "That failure isn't the end," he said finally. "It's just a part of the process. And sometimes, the only way forward is to keep going, even when you don't believe in yourself." Elon nodded approvingly. "That's the kind of wisdom that can't be bought or taught. It has to be earned." The night stretched on, filled with laughter, honest talk, and a sense of belonging Jack hadn't felt in years. When the dinner ended, Elon pulled Jack aside and said quietly, "You have something special. Don't lose sight of it. The world needs people like you, people who fight for more than just success, who fight for meaning." Jack felt a swell of emotion, a mixture of gratitude and resolve. Walking back to his hotel, he clutched the notebook, pages now filled with his story and dreams for the future. He thought of Emma and the promise he had made to her, to never give up, to keep fighting no matter what. That night, Jack dreamed of a life transformed, not just by chance or luck, but by the strength to rise after every fall. The quiet man in first class had given him more than inspiration, he had given him a path forward, one written not in headlines or dollars, but in courage and hope. Jack knew the journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time, he believed it was possible. The next morning, with the city waking beneath him, Jack felt ready to begin again. Jack's days quickly settled into a rhythm filled with both excitement and anxiety. The conference was winding down, but his mind remained restless, spinning with ideas, fears, and the promise of change. Each morning, he woke early to jot more thoughts in the notebook Elon had given him. A ritual that was becoming as essential as breathing. The act of writing seemed to unlock something deep inside, a mixture of pain and hope, regret and resolve. Jack's past haunted him like a shadow, but now he faced it with a new strength, not as a victim but as a survivor. Every memory, the fractured family dinners, the arguments with his father, the long nights wondering if he was enough, became threads in a tapestry of resilience he was slowly weaving. The city around him pulsed with life, its endless noise and movement both overwhelming and inspiring. Jack wandered its streets during breaks in the conference, observing people who seemed to carry their own battles and dreams. He thought about how many stories like his were hidden beneath the surface, how everyone was fighting in silence. One afternoon, while sitting in a crowded coffee shop, Jack's phone buzzed with an unexpected message. It was from Elon. "Meet me at the rooftop garden, 5 p.m. I want to show you something." Jack's heart raced. The rooftop garden was a secret oasis atop one of the conference buildings, a place Elon often retreated to think and dream. When Jack arrived, he found Elon already there, gazing out over the city skyline. The golden light of the setting sun cast long shadows, turning the glass towers into glowing pillars. "You ever wonder why some people keep pushing, no matter how hard it gets?" Elon asked without looking back. Jack nodded slowly. "I think it's because they believe there's something worth fighting for. Something bigger than themselves." Elon smiled. "Exactly. It's not about fame or money. It's about purpose. That's what keeps me going, especially when the world doubts you." They stood together in silence for a moment, the city humming below like a heartbeat. Elon turned to Jack, his gaze intense but kind. "I want to give you a chance to be part of something bigger. We're launching a new project, one that could change how people think about energy and the future. It's risky, ambitious, and we need people who believe in it." Jack felt a mixture of excitement and fear. This was the opportunity he had dreamed of, yet the doubts whispered at the edges of his mind. "Why me?" he asked quietly. Elon's eyes softened. "Because I see something in you. A spark. You're not perfect, but you're real. And sometimes, that's what matters most." Over the next few weeks, Jack dove into the project with everything he had. The team was intense, brilliant, and demanding, pushing the limits of technology and imagination. There were moments of triumph, breakthroughs that made Jack's heart race, and moments of crushing failure that threatened to break him. Late nights blurred into early mornings, filled with ideas, arguments, and endless problem-solving. Jack learned to listen in new ways, to ask questions that challenged assumptions, and to trust the power of collaboration. He discovered strengths he hadn't known he possessed, the ability to stay calm under pressure, to inspire others, to keep hope alive when it seemed impossible. At times, the pressure was overwhelming. Doubts crept back, memories of past failures whispering that he wasn't enough. But each time, Jack remembered Elon's words, the quiet man who had shown him that strength often comes in silence, in the willingness to keep moving forward. One evening, after a particularly tough day, Jack sat alone on the rooftop garden, staring out at the city lights. The notebook was open on his lap, filled with notes and reflections. He thought about how far he had come, from the scared kid in a broken home to a man fighting for a future he barely dared to imagine. Tears welled up, not from sadness but from the release of years of pain and hope. Jack whispered to the night, "I'm ready." The project began to gain momentum, attracting attention from investors and the media. Jack found himself thrust into the spotlight, a role he never sought but couldn't avoid. He stumbled through interviews, learning to speak with honesty and passion about the vision they were chasing. The team celebrated small victories, knowing the real challenge was still ahead. Jack thought often of Emma, the sister who had always believed in him, the anchor in his stormy life. He called her regularly, sharing both the triumphs and the struggles. Her voice was a balm, a reminder that he wasn't alone. As the launch date approached, tension mounted. The entire team poured their hearts into the final preparations, aware that success wasn't guaranteed. The world was watching, and the stakes had never been higher. On the day of the launch, Jack stood backstage, heart pounding. He looked out at the crowd, reporters, investors, and curious onlookers, and felt the weight of expectation. Elon appeared beside him, calm and steady. "Remember why you started," Elon said softly. "This is bigger than any one of us." The presentation began, and Jack spoke with a newfound confidence, sharing the vision and the journey. The room was silent, hanging on every word. When the project was unveiled, applause erupted, and Jack felt a rush of pride and relief. But beneath the celebration, he knew the journey was just beginning. Success wasn't a destination but a stepping stone. That night, as the city slept, Jack returned to the rooftop garden, the notebook in hand. He wrote about the day, the fear, the hope, the unexpected joy of realizing a dream. He understood now that life was a series of moments, each shaped by the choices we make and the courage to face the unknown. The quiet man who had once been mocked in first class had become a guide, a symbol of resilience and possibility. Jack smiled, closing the notebook. He was no longer the same man who had boarded that plane weeks ago. He was stronger, wiser, and ready to face whatever came next. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: Jack was no longer afraid to write his own story. In the weeks that followed the project launch, Jack's life shifted in ways he had never anticipated. The spotlight that had once felt blinding now warmed him, fueling a new confidence that crept into every corner of his existence. Still, beneath the surface, old fears lurked: fear of failure, fear of losing the fragile hope he had fought so hard to find. The city that had once felt overwhelming became a canvas of opportunity, each street and building a symbol of the life Jack was building brick by brick. His relationship with Elon deepened, not as mentor and mentee, but as two men who had walked different paths yet shared a similar fire. Elon's presence was a steady anchor in the storm of change. They met regularly, sometimes in quiet corners of bustling cafes, sometimes in the rooftop garden where their journey had begun. Elon spoke openly about the sacrifices required for greatness, the loneliness, the criticism, the burden of expectations. Jack listened, absorbing lessons that textbooks and seminars had never taught. One afternoon, Elon invited Jack to visit one of his manufacturing facilities outside the city. The sprawling complex was a hive of innovation and relentless work, machines humming, teams collaborating to turn ideas into reality. Jack walked through the plant with wide eyes, inspired by the scale and precision. "This is where vision meets sweat," Elon said. "Dreams are worthless without hard work." Jack nodded, feeling the truth of those words in his bones. Back in the city, Jack's own project faced new challenges. Competitors emerged, skepticism grew, and the pressure to deliver results mounted. Investors asked tough questions, deadlines loomed, and the team grappled with setbacks that threatened morale. Jack found himself stretched thin, balancing leadership with self-doubt. But each time he faltered, he recalled the quiet man in first class who had shown him that strength often lies in perseverance, in the decision to keep moving forward when the road is darkest. One evening, after a grueling day of meetings, Jack returned to his apartment to find a package waiting. Inside was a book, Elon's favorite, a collection of essays about resilience, leadership, and the human spirit. A note accompanied it, for when you need a reminder that the impossible is often just the untried. Jack smiled, feeling the weight of the gesture. That night, he read the essays by lamplight, words stirring something deep within. They spoke of failure not as defeat, but as feedback, of courage not as absence of fear but as action despite it. Jack's resolve hardened. He began to reach out to others, building a network of support and collaboration. He connected with fellow entrepreneurs, mentors, and even critics, learning to see value in every perspective. Slowly, the project regained momentum. New partnerships formed, innovations emerged, and the team's vision took clearer shape. Amid the chaos, Jack carved out moments of peace, morning runs through city parks, quiet dinners with Emma when she visited, evenings spent writing in the notebook that had become his constant companion. These rituals grounded him, reminding him of why he had started this journey. One morning, Jack received an invitation to speak at a major industry event. The opportunity was both thrilling and terrifying. Public speaking had never been his strength, but he knew this was a chance to share his story, to inspire others who felt stuck or lost. He prepared meticulously, rehearsing his speech, imagining the faces in the audience, searching for the words that would resonate. On the day of the event, Jack stood behind the curtain, heart pounding. He glanced at the notebook in his hand, the pages filled with his journey, the struggles, the lessons, the hope. When his name was called, Jack stepped onto the stage, the bright lights momentarily blinding. But as he looked out at the sea of faces, he found a strange calm. He began to speak, his voice steady but full of emotion. He shared his story honestly, the broken family, the years of doubt, the chance encounter with a quiet man in first class that changed everything. He talked about failure and perseverance, about the importance of believing in yourself even when no one else does. The audience listened intently, some nodding, others wiping away tears. When he finished, the applause was thunderous, filling the room with energy and connection. Backstage, Elon found him and smiled. "You've come a long way," he said simply. Jack felt a swell of gratitude and pride, knowing the journey was far from over but that he had taken a crucial step. In the days that followed, Jack's story spread beyond the event. Media outlets picked up his speech, sharing his message of hope and resilience with a wider audience. He received messages from strangers who had been inspired, who saw themselves in his struggles and triumphs. The validation was humbling, a reminder that vulnerability could be a source of strength. Yet, amidst the success, Jack remained grounded. He knew the road ahead would have twists and turns, moments of doubt and hardship. But he was no longer afraid. The quiet man in first class had taught him that true strength was found in the journey itself, in the willingness to rise, fall, and rise again. One evening, as Jack walked through the city streets, he thought about the future, not as a distant dream but as a living possibility. He felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that no matter what came next, he had the courage to face it. The journey was his own, but he carried with him the lessons of those who had walked before, a legacy of resilience, hope, and the unbreakable human spirit. Jack smiled to himself, the city lights reflecting in his eyes. He was ready. Jack woke to the sound of his phone buzzing incessantly on the nightstand. Blinking against the early morning light, he reached for it, surprised to see dozens of notifications piling up, emails, messages, news alerts. Overnight, the story he had shared at the industry event had gone viral. People everywhere were talking about the quiet man in first class who turned out to be Elon Musk, and the unlikely connection that had sparked a new journey. Jack's inbox was flooded with interview requests, invitations to speak at conferences, and messages from strangers inspired by his story. The sudden attention was overwhelming but also exhilarating. He felt like he had stepped into a new world, one full of possibilities but also challenges he hadn't anticipated. He took a deep breath, reminding himself to stay grounded. Fame was not the goal, it was a byproduct of the path he was choosing to walk. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Jack found himself juggling meetings with media outlets, strategy sessions with his team, and moments of reflection where he questioned if he was ready for all this. The project with Elon's company was advancing rapidly, fueled by new investments and partnerships. The technology they were developing promised to disrupt the energy industry and create real impact. But with progress came pressure. Investors demanded results, competitors watched closely, and every misstep was magnified. Jack learned quickly how to navigate this high-stakes environment, drawing on the lessons of resilience he had embraced. He also leaned heavily on Emma, whose steady support was a lifeline. One evening, after a long day filled with back-to-back calls, Jack found himself alone in the conference room, staring at a whiteboard covered in diagrams and notes. The complexity of the project suddenly felt suffocating, and the weight of expectations pressed down on him like never before. For a moment, doubt crept in. Was he truly capable of leading this? Was he just a lucky man riding on Elon's coattails? The silence was broken by a message from Elon: remember, pressure reveals character. You're stronger than you think. Jack smiled, feeling a flicker of hope. He took a deep breath and dove back into the work, channeling the pressure into focus and determination. The next few weeks tested him in ways he hadn't expected. Technical setbacks threatened to derail the timeline, disagreements within the team created tension, and Jack's own health began to suffer from the relentless pace. But through it all, he held on to the belief that this project was bigger than any one challenge. He learned to ask for help, to delegate, and to trust the people around him. Slowly, the pieces began to come together. The team made breakthroughs that reignited their confidence, and the project started to take shape in a way that exceeded expectations. Jack's leadership grew more assured, his vision clearer. At the same time, he continued to share his story publicly, becoming a voice for perseverance and hope. Interviews and talks allowed him to connect with people who felt stuck or lost, reminding them that transformation was possible. Jack's own journey became a beacon for others, a living example of how a chance encounter and a willingness to change could alter the course of a life. One afternoon, Jack received an unexpected visitor. It was a woman named Rachel, an activist and community leader who had heard his story and wanted to collaborate on a project aimed at bringing sustainable energy solutions to underserved neighborhoods. Her passion and vision inspired Jack, reminding him that the impact of their work could reach far beyond corporate boardrooms and investor reports. Together, they began to explore ways to use the new technology to create social good, planting seeds for a future where innovation and compassion went hand in hand. As the months passed, Jack found balance in the chaos. He carved out time for Emma and their growing circle of friends, moments of laughter and connection that nourished his spirit. He returned to the rooftop garden often, a sanctuary where he could reflect and dream. Writing in his notebook remained a daily ritual, a way to process his thoughts and chart the path forward. One evening, after a successful presentation at a global summit, Jack stood on the rooftop, gazing at the stars. The city stretched out beneath him, alive with energy and possibility. He thought back to the journey that had brought him here. From the mocking voice on the plane to the quiet man who had changed everything. The lessons he had learned echoed in his mind, that strength comes from vulnerability, that hope can survive even the darkest nights, and that the greatest journeys begin with a single step. Jack knew there were still challenges ahead, moments when doubt would return and the path would seem uncertain. But he was ready. The story was far from over, but for the first time in his life, he felt like he was exactly where he was meant to be. Jack's momentum was undeniable, but the deeper he plunged into the project, the more he realized that innovation was only half the battle. The other half was navigating the intricate web of human relationships, trust, ego, ambition, and fear, that could either propel or cripple progress. At the heart of it all, Jack faced his own internal struggles. Despite the growing recognition and success, the scars from his past still whispered doubts. Sometimes, in quiet moments, he wondered if he was truly worthy of this second chance or if it was just luck and coincidence that had carried him this far. The team's diversity was both its strength and its challenge. Brilliant minds from different backgrounds and perspectives clashed frequently, leading to heated debates and moments of tension. Jack learned that leadership wasn't about having all the answers but about listening, mediating, and inspiring. One particularly difficult day, a technical disagreement spiraled into a confrontation between two key team members. Jack stepped in, not to impose authority but to facilitate understanding. Drawing from his own experience of conflict and reconciliation, he helped them find common ground. That afternoon, as the sun cast long shadows through the windows, Jack saw a glimpse of the leader he wanted to become, one who could hold space for both conflict and collaboration. Meanwhile, the media frenzy continued to grow. Jack's story was featured in magazines and podcasts, inspiring many but also attracting skeptics and critics. Some questioned his rapid rise, others doubted the feasibility of the project. Jack learned to handle praise and criticism with equal grace, remembering Elon's advice that the noise was part of the journey. One evening, after a tough day of back-to-back interviews, Jack retreated to the rooftop garden. He stared out at the city lights, feeling the weight of expectations pressing down. The notebook was open on his lap, pages filled with reflections, plans, and doubts. Writing had become his refuge, a way to process the whirlwind of his life. As he penned his thoughts, a phrase emerged again and again: resilience isn't just about enduring. It's about transforming. Jack realized that this was the true heart of his journey. It wasn't enough to survive the storms of life, he needed to change because of them, to grow stronger and wiser. That night, Jack dreamed vividly of his father. The dream was neither angry nor sad but filled with a quiet understanding. He saw his younger self standing beside his father, both tentative and hopeful. In the dream, his father spoke words Jack had longed to hear: "You're doing better than I ever could. Keep going." Jack woke with tears in his eyes and a newfound sense of peace. The past wasn't a chain but a foundation. He was free to build something new. The project continued to progress, reaching critical milestones that validated months of hard work. Investors renewed their faith, and the technology began to attract international attention. Jack traveled frequently, meeting with partners and presenting their vision on global stages. Each trip was a test of endurance and adaptability, but also a chance to learn and grow. Through it all, Emma remained his anchor. Their bond deepened, forged in shared struggles and hopes. She challenged him to stay true to his values, reminding him that success without integrity was hollow. Together, they dreamed of a future where their work would not only change industries but lives. One day, Jack received an invitation from Elon to join a private retreat, a gathering of innovators, thinkers, and dreamers from around the world. The retreat promised a space for deep reflection, connection, and collaboration beyond the pressures of the business world. Jack accepted eagerly, sensing that this was an opportunity to expand his horizons and recharge his spirit. The retreat was held in a remote location, surrounded by mountains and forests, a sharp contrast to the urban chaos Jack was used to. Days were filled with workshops, discussions, and quiet moments of contemplation. Jack found himself challenged to think not just about technology and business but about ethics, purpose, and the legacy he wanted to leave. Conversations with other attendees stretched his perspective, opening doors to new ideas and possibilities. Elon, as always, was both a guide and a fellow seeker, pushing Jack to question assumptions and embrace uncertainty. One evening, gathered around a campfire under a sky crowded with stars, Elon shared a story from his own youth, of failures so crushing he had thought his dreams were over, but also of the moments when unexpected kindness and faith had kept him going. Jack listened, feeling the deep humanity behind the legend. The retreat became a turning point. Jack returned with renewed clarity and purpose. He saw his journey not just as a quest for success but as a mission to inspire and empower others to believe in their own potential. The project resumed with vigor, fueled by this broader vision. As months passed, Jack balanced the intense demands of his work with moments of stillness and joy. He celebrated milestones with his team, cherished quiet evenings with Emma, and continued to write in the notebook that had become a chronicle of his transformation. One day, Standing before a crowd at a major conference, Jack shared a message that encapsulated his journey. We all face moments when the world seems against us, when our dreams feel impossible. But it's in those moments that we discover who we truly are. Resilience is not just surviving adversity, it's using it to become the best version of ourselves. The applause was thunderous, but Jack felt the real victory was in the hearts of those listening, in the spark of hope and courage he saw reflected back. The journey was far from over, but Jack knew one thing for certain: the quiet man in first class had changed his life forever, not by offering easy answers but by showing him the power of belief, perseverance, and kindness. Jack smiled as he closed the notebook that night, ready to face whatever the future held. Jack's life had transformed dramatically, yet with every step forward, new complexities arose that tested his resolve and character in unexpected ways. The project's scale expanded rapidly, drawing attention from global players in energy and technology, and with that attention came scrutiny. Every decision was analyzed, every delay magnified, every success questioned. Jack realized that leading innovation was not just about creating groundbreaking technology, it was about navigating the volatile human and political landscapes that surrounded it. One morning, as Jack arrived at the office, he was greeted by a tense atmosphere. The leadership team was gathered, voices raised, frustration palpable. A critical partner had pulled out of the deal, citing concerns about the project's timeline and potential regulatory hurdles. The news was a heavy blow. Investors demanded answers, and the team's morale wavered. Jack felt the weight of responsibility crushing down. He spent the next several days meeting with stakeholders, trying to salvage relationships and rebuild trust. The pressure was immense, and Jack often found himself awake in the early hours, grappling with questions that had no easy answers. In these moments, he returned to the lessons he had learned from Elon and his own journey: the importance of transparency, humility, and persistence. He called a company-wide meeting to address the challenges openly. Instead of hiding the difficulties, Jack shared the truth about setbacks and uncertainties, emphasizing the shared commitment to the vision and the need for collective resilience. The team responded with renewed energy, inspired by Jack's honesty and determination. Slowly, new partnerships emerged, and the project moved forward, though the path was far from smooth. Amid these professional challenges, Jack's personal life deepened in complexity. Emma's career was flourishing, and she was often traveling for work, leaving Jack to navigate the demands of his growing responsibilities largely on his own. Their relationship was strong but strained by distance and time. They found solace in late-night calls and weekend reunions, cherishing the moments of connection amid the chaos. Jack also found himself confronting old wounds as he reconnected with his family. His mother reached out tentatively, seeking reconciliation after years of silence. Jack struggled with the pain of past betrayals but recognized the chance for healing. He agreed to meet, unsure what to expect. The reunion was awkward and emotional. His mother apologized for the mistakes that had fractured their relationship and expressed a desire to rebuild trust. Jack listened carefully, weighing forgiveness against caution. Over time, small steps of understanding and communication began to bridge the divide. The process was neither quick nor easy, but it was transformative for Jack. He realized that healing required vulnerability and courage, not just from others but from himself. At the same time, Jack's public profile continued to rise. He became a sought-after speaker and advisor, invited to forums and panels where he shared insights on innovation, leadership, and resilience. He embraced these opportunities as platforms to amplify his message and inspire others. However, the spotlight also attracted critics who questioned his motives and capability. Jack learned to navigate public scrutiny with grace, focusing on his purpose rather than the noise. One pivotal moment came when Jack was asked to participate in a televised debate about the future of energy. The discussion was heated, with opponents challenging the viability of his technology and the ethics of its deployment. Jack remained calm and articulate, using the platform to clarify misconceptions and advocate for sustainable progress. The debate was widely covered, further elevating Jack's profile and opening doors for collaboration. Despite the increasing demands, Jack remained committed to grounding himself in reflection and balance. He continued his morning runs and rooftop retreats, practices that nurtured his mental and emotional well-being. Writing in his notebook became a sacred ritual, a space to process experiences and chart new directions. Through these practices, Jack maintained clarity and resilience amid the whirlwind of change. One day, an unexpected email arrived from Elon, inviting Jack to visit a new SpaceX facility that was pushing the boundaries of exploration and technology. The invitation was more than a tour, it was an opportunity to witness firsthand the spirit of relentless innovation and to connect with a community of pioneers shaping the future. Jack accepted eagerly, eager to immerse himself in this world. The facility was awe-inspiring, massive rockets standing like monuments to human ambition, teams of engineers and scientists working with focused intensity, the hum of creativity and determination palpable in the air. Jack walked through the sprawling complex, feeling the electricity of possibility. Elon shared stories of setbacks and breakthroughs, the sacrifices required to turn dreams into reality. Jack felt a deep kinship, understanding that their journeys were intertwined not just by technology but by the shared experience of risk, hope, and perseverance. Inspired, Jack returned with renewed energy and ideas, eager to apply lessons from space exploration to his own work. He began exploring partnerships that bridged industries and expanded the scope of his vision. Yet, even in this heady atmosphere of progress, Jack never lost sight of the people behind the technology, the communities that would be affected, the environmental impacts, and the ethical responsibilities inherent in innovation. He convened advisory groups, including activists like Rachel, scientists, and local leaders, to ensure the project aligned with broader social values. Jack believed that true innovation was not just about invention but about making a positive difference in the world. As the project moved closer to commercial launch, the pressure intensified. Timelines tightened, expectations soared, and the stakes felt higher than ever. Jack found himself navigating a delicate balance between bold ambition and cautious pragmatism. The weight of leadership was sometimes overwhelming, but he drew strength from the support around him and the knowledge that this was the culmination of years of struggle and growth. One night, after a long day of meetings, Jack sat alone in his apartment, staring at the city skyline. The notebook lay open beside him, filled with reflections on the journey so far. He wrote, "The road is never straight. It twists and turns, full of obstacles and surprises. But every step, every challenge, is a chance to learn and grow. Success is not a destination but a journey of resilience, vision, and heart." As dawn broke, Jack closed the notebook with a sense of calm determination. The future was uncertain, but he was ready to meet it head-on. The quiet man in first class had shown him the power of belief, and now Jack was living that belief every day, shaping a future that once seemed impossible. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The launch day had arrived, a culmination of years of relentless effort, late nights, and countless obstacles overcome. Jack stood in the control room surrounded by his team, the hum of equipment and the buzz of anticipation filling the air. Outside, the prototype plant was ready to begin its first full-scale operation, a groundbreaking moment not only for the company but for sustainable energy worldwide. Every detail had been meticulously planned, yet the weight of uncertainty lingered. Jack remembered the early days, the mockery he endured on that first-class flight, the quiet man who became a catalyst for change. Now, standing on the threshold of something monumental, he felt a surge of gratitude and responsibility. The countdown began. Heartbeats synced with the blinking lights and ticking clocks. The initial activation of the system was flawless. Energy flowed through the circuits, sensors recorded optimal performance, and the room erupted in cautious celebration. But just as relief began to settle, alarms blared. A critical valve was malfunctioning, threatening to destabilize the entire operation. Panic flickered across faces as engineers scrambled to diagnose the problem. Jack's mind raced. Years of experience taught him that crises were inevitable, but it was how one responded that defined success. Calmly, he coordinated efforts, directing resources and encouraging the team. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Finally, the valve was replaced and stabilized. The system resumed operation, stronger and more efficient than before. The initial scare had tested the team's mettle and reinforced their resolve. The successful launch made headlines globally, positioning the company as a leader in clean energy innovation. Jack found himself in interviews, press conferences, and celebrations, but amid the triumph, he remained grounded. He knew this was only the beginning. The real work lay ahead. Scaling the technology, ensuring accessibility, and addressing the complex realities of energy infrastructure worldwide. One unexpected challenge emerged quickly: regulatory hurdles. Governments and agencies, wary of new technology, demanded extensive testing and compliance assurances. Jack immersed himself in policy discussions, advocating for streamlined pathways that balanced safety with innovation. Navigating bureaucracy tested his patience but also deepened his understanding of the broader ecosystem in which technology existed. At the same time, public skepticism lingered. Some questioned the feasibility of widespread adoption, others feared job losses in traditional energy sectors. Jack embraced dialogue, organizing community forums and educational campaigns to build trust and transparency. He invited critics and supporters alike to engage in conversations grounded in facts and shared goals. These efforts fostered connections and softened opposition, reinforcing Jack's belief that progress required collaboration beyond the laboratory and boardroom. Meanwhile, Jack's personal life grew richer and more complex. Emma's work took her overseas frequently, but their bond remained strong, fueled by shared dreams and mutual support. They planned future steps together, perhaps starting a family, deepening roots while continuing their demanding careers. Jack also continued to nurture his relationship with his mother and family, repairing old wounds with patience and empathy. These connections, once fragile, became sources of strength and joy. One afternoon, Jack received a surprise visit from Elon. The two men sat together overlooking the city skyline, reflecting on the journey from their first encounter to this pivotal moment. Elon praised Jack's leadership and resilience, noting how far he had come. Jack, in turn, expressed gratitude for the guidance and friendship that had helped him navigate the complex path. They discussed the future, space exploration, sustainable energy, and the power of human creativity to solve global challenges. The conversation was a reminder that innovation was a shared journey, fueled by vision and courage. Back at the company, Jack pushed forward with expansion plans. New facilities were announced, partnerships forged across continents, and investment poured in. Yet Jack remained mindful of the project's core mission: to create technology that served people and the planet. He emphasized ethical practices, environmental stewardship, and community engagement in every decision. The company's culture evolved into one of transparency, inclusivity, and shared purpose. Jack also embraced mentorship, supporting young entrepreneurs and innovators who sought guidance. He spoke openly about his struggles and successes, hoping to inspire others to persist through adversity. His story, once about a man mocked on a plane, had become a beacon of hope and possibility. Despite the progress, challenges persisted. Market fluctuations, technical glitches, and unforeseen crises tested the team's resilience. Jack faced moments of doubt, recalling the dark days before the breakthrough. But each challenge reinforced the lessons of persistence and adaptation. He surrounded himself with trusted advisors and leaned on Emma's unwavering support. In quieter moments, Jack returned to his rooftop sanctuary. The city below shimmered with life, a reminder of the interconnectedness of people, technology, and dreams. Writing remained a solace, a way to crystallize thoughts and maintain perspective. One evening, Jack penned a reflection: true innovation requires more than technology, it demands courage to face uncertainty, humility to learn from failure, and compassion to serve others. Our journey is far from over, but every step forward is a testament to what's possible when we believe. The story resonated widely when shared, echoing in speeches, articles, and conversations. Jack's voice became synonymous with hope in a time of rapid change and uncertainty. As the company approached its 5th anniversary, Jack organized a celebration that honored the team's hard work and the community's support. The event was both festive and reflective, with stories of struggle and triumph shared openly. Jack spoke passionately about the future, a future where innovation and humanity coexisted, where technology empowered lives and nurtured the planet. The crowd responded with enthusiasm and commitment. Looking ahead, Jack envisioned new frontiers. Expanding clean energy access to remote areas, developing educational programs, and continuing to break barriers. He knew the journey would demand resilience and vision but felt ready to lead with heart and conviction. The quiet man in first class had sparked a transformation that rippled far beyond their initial encounter. Jack had grown from a man seeking redemption to a leader shaping the future. He embraced the responsibility and possibility, knowing that the greatest stories are those still being written. As the company grew, so did the complexity of Jack's world. What once had been a tight-knit team now included dozens of departments, dozens of stakeholders, and a global web of partners and customers. Jack found himself increasingly juggling not just technical challenges, but the subtleties of corporate governance, international relations, and public image. One morning, a new dilemma arrived in the form of a crisis at one of the overseas facilities. A malfunction in a critical system had caused a partial shutdown, threatening not only operational continuity but also the safety of nearby communities. Jack was immediately pulled into a whirlwind of calls, meetings, and damage control efforts. The media was already circling, ready to pounce on any sign of failure. As the public face of the company, Jack knew that transparency was vital, yet he also had to carefully navigate legal and regulatory constraints. The pressure was immense. Late into the night, Jack coordinated with engineers and crisis managers, crafting a response that balanced accountability with reassurance. He flew out to the site within days, determined to understand the situation firsthand and provide support to the local team. On arrival, the scene was sobering. Equipment lay damaged, and concerned residents gathered nearby. Jack met with local leaders and engineers, listening deeply to their fears and frustrations. It was a moment of reckoning, a test not only of the technology but of the company's values. Jack assured the community that their safety and well-being were paramount and pledged full cooperation to resolve the issue. The repair process was painstaking, demanding long hours and painstaking attention to detail. Jack stayed on site, supporting the team and maintaining open lines of communication with stakeholders. He realized that leadership was as much about presence and empathy as it was about vision and strategy. The crisis also exposed gaps in the company's risk management protocols. Jack convened a task force to review policies and implement stronger safeguards, ensuring that such an event would never happen again. The lessons learned deepened his commitment to responsible innovation, reinforcing the idea that progress must be pursued with humility and care. Back at headquarters, Jack faced another kind of challenge: internal tension. As the company scaled, differences in opinion about direction and priorities began to surface among executives. Some pushed for aggressive expansion and rapid market capture, while others cautioned for prudence and consolidation. Jack found himself mediating these conflicts, striving to balance ambition with sustainability. It was a delicate dance that required patience and wisdom. During this period, Jack also grappled with his own sense of identity. Success had brought wealth and status, but it also triggered questions about authenticity and purpose. He reflected often on the lessons from his first-class encounter with Elon, the quiet power of humility and the importance of staying grounded. Jack sought ways to remain connected to the original mission that had fueled his journey, creating technology that uplifted humanity. This introspection led him to deepen his philanthropic efforts. He partnered with nonprofits and community organizations to expand access to clean energy in underserved areas. Jack believed that technology was a tool for justice, and he was determined to ensure that its benefits reached those most in need. At the same time, Jack's relationship with Emma faced new tests. Their demanding careers and frequent absences strained their time together, leading to misunderstandings and moments of distance. Both recognized the importance of communication and made conscious efforts to prioritize their connection. Weekend retreats and heartfelt conversations rekindled their bond, reminding them of the foundation of love and shared vision they had built. One particular evening, after a long day of meetings, Jack found solace in a letter Emma had written. She expressed pride in his work but also vulnerability about the challenges they faced. The letter was a reminder that even amidst public success, personal struggles remained. Jack wrote back with honesty and reassurance, committing to grow both as a leader and as a partner. These moments of vulnerability strengthened Jack's understanding that true leadership extended beyond business, it encompassed care for the people around him. Meanwhile, the company pushed ahead with technological breakthroughs. New iterations of the energy system demonstrated improved efficiency and scalability, garnering accolades from experts and industry leaders. Jack was invited to speak at international conferences, sharing insights on innovation and the intersection of technology and society. Despite the accolades, Jack remained humble, emphasizing that the work was collective and ongoing. One day, a surprising invitation arrived. Jack was asked to serve on a governmental advisory panel focused on national energy policy. It was a testament to his growing influence and expertise, but also a new responsibility. Jack embraced the role, determined to advocate for policies that encouraged sustainable innovation and equitable access. Navigating politics was unfamiliar territory, requiring diplomacy and strategic thinking. Jack approached the challenge as he had all others, with openness to learning and a commitment to integrity. His contributions helped shape frameworks that balanced industry needs with environmental protection and social equity. This work broadened Jack's perspective, reinforcing the interconnectedness of technology, policy, and human well-being. Throughout these years, Jack never lost sight of the quiet man who had changed everything. He often thought about Elon, about their conversations and the wisdom shared. In private moments, Jack returned to the notebook that chronicled his journey. Reading old entries reminded him of how far he had come and the values that had carried him through. Jack knew that the path ahead would bring new challenges, but he was ready. His story was one of resilience, transformation, and hope, a story still unfolding. As he looked toward the future, Jack's vision expanded beyond technology to encompass a more compassionate, just world. The lessons learned from mistakes and triumphs fueled a deeper commitment to use innovation as a force for good. The quiet man in first class had ignited a spark that burned brighter than ever, illuminating the way forward for Jack and those who followed his journey. Jack's growing influence brought with it invitations to elite gatherings and private meetings with influential figures from business, politics, and science. At first, these encounters felt surreal, a far cry from the days when he was mocked on a plane for being a nobody. But Jack quickly realized that behind the glitz and power were complex dynamics and unspoken agendas. One evening, at a gala event in New York City, Jack found himself seated next to a prominent venture capitalist known for aggressive tactics and ruthless deals. The man questioned Jack's cautious approach, urging him to push faster, take bigger risks, and dominate the market. Jack listened patiently but felt a deep unease. His vision was never about domination or shortcuts, it was about sustainable progress rooted in integrity. That night, Jack pondered the pressures of success and the ethical lines he was determined not to cross. This internal struggle became a recurring theme as Jack navigated the upper echelons of power. He sought mentors who valued principle over profit, who believed in leadership with heart. Slowly, Jack built a network of allies who shared his vision for responsible innovation. Meanwhile, the technology itself evolved. Jack and his team pioneered advancements that made their energy system more adaptable, affordable, and environmentally friendly. Pilot programs in rural communities demonstrated real-world impact, schools powered by clean energy, hospitals with reliable electricity, families freed from the burdens of costly fuels. These stories fueled Jack's passion and fortified his resolve. Yet the path was not without resistance. Incumbent industries and political interests sometimes pushed back, wary of disruption and change. Jack engaged in public debates and policy discussions, standing firm against misinformation and fear-mongering. He believed that transparency and education were vital tools in winning hearts and minds. One particularly challenging episode arose when a major competitor launched a smear campaign questioning the safety and viability of Jack's technology. The accusations were unfounded but gained traction in certain media circles. Jack responded swiftly and openly, providing evidence and inviting independent audits. The company's transparency won public support, turning a potential crisis into a demonstration of trustworthiness. Through it all, Jack leaned on his team and Emma. Their partnership, though tested by time and distance, remained a source of strength. They celebrated milestones together and comforted each other in setbacks. The shared commitment to their dreams bound them tightly. Jack also found time to mentor young entrepreneurs, especially women and minorities, encouraging diversity and inclusion in tech fields. He spoke about the importance of opportunity and representation, recognizing that innovation thrived on varied perspectives. As Jack's story gained attention, media profiles highlighted not just his achievements but the character behind the success, the quiet determination, the willingness to listen, and the humility that defined him. Interviews often circled back to that first-class flight and the man who had changed everything with a simple act of kindness and belief. In quieter moments, Jack reflected on how much of his journey had been shaped by that encounter. He realized that true leadership was less about titles and more about impact, the lives touched, the barriers broken, the hope inspired. One afternoon, Jack received an unexpected call from Elon. They spoke candidly about the challenges and joys of their respective paths. Elon encouraged Jack to remain true to himself and reminded him that the journey was ongoing, filled with twists and turns that demanded courage and adaptability. The conversation reinvigorated Jack's spirit. Around this time, Jack began exploring new frontiers. Integrating AI and machine learning to optimize energy distribution, experimenting with decentralized grids that empowered communities, and partnering with universities to foster innovation hubs. The pace was dizzying, but Jack thrived on the challenge. He embraced the philosophy that progress was a collective endeavor, built on collaboration and shared vision. Yet, despite outward success, Jack faced moments of loneliness. The demands of leadership often meant sacrificing personal time and privacy. He missed simple pleasures, quiet dinners, spontaneous adventures with Emma, uninterrupted weekends. He acknowledged these feelings openly in his journal, reminding himself that vulnerability was a strength, not a weakness. These reflections deepened Jack's empathy, shaping a leadership style that valued balance and well-being alongside achievement. One evening, at a panel discussion on future technologies, Jack was asked a poignant question. What drives you when the obstacles seem insurmountable? Jack smiled, recalling the long journey from that fateful flight to this stage. He answered, it's the belief that every challenge is an opportunity, to learn, to grow, and to make a difference. And it's the people who inspire me, the quiet acts of kindness, the shared dreams, and the hope that guides us forward. His words resonated with the audience, many of whom faced their own struggles and aspirations. As the years passed, Jack's influence extended beyond technology. He became a symbol of resilience, integrity, and compassionate leadership. Foundations were established to support education and sustainability, and Jack's story inspired countless others to pursue their visions with courage and heart. Looking back, Jack marveled at the unexpected journey, a journey sparked by a chance encounter, shaped by setbacks and triumphs, and fueled by an unwavering belief in the power of kindness and vision. The quiet man in first class had not only changed Jack's life but had ignited a spark that continued to light the way for many. And Jack knew that the greatest stories were those still unfolding, written every day by those willing to dream, to persevere, and to lead with love. The company's rapid expansion brought new opportunities and challenges. Jack found himself navigating unfamiliar terrain as he stepped into the world of international markets and cross-cultural partnerships. What had started as a small project now demanded global vision and diplomatic skill. Early in the year, Jack traveled to Asia to meet with government officials and potential investors interested in deploying their clean energy technology across rapidly developing regions. The trip was eye-opening. Jack witnessed firsthand the stark contrasts between urban centers bustling with innovation and rural areas still struggling with basic infrastructure. These encounters deepened his commitment to ensuring that the benefits of technology reached everyone, not just the privileged few. However, the complexities of international collaboration soon became clear. Cultural differences, regulatory environments, and varying priorities required patience and adaptability. Jack learned to listen more deeply, to ask questions rather than make assumptions, and to build trust through respect and transparency. During one meeting in a packed conference room, Jack faced skeptical officials who doubted the feasibility of their technology in challenging climates. He responded with data, pilot project outcomes, and heartfelt stories from communities positively impacted by their work. Slowly, skepticism gave way to cautious optimism. The negotiations were long and often exhausting, but each breakthrough felt like a step toward bridging divides and fostering shared progress. Back home, the company adapted to meet the demands of international operations. Jack invested in diverse talent, encouraging employees with local knowledge and cultural fluency to take leadership roles. He also launched training programs to prepare teams for the nuances of global collaboration. These efforts strengthened the company's foundation and enhanced its ability to innovate responsively. Meanwhile, Jack continued to balance his professional responsibilities with personal growth. The pressures of leadership weighed heavily at times, but he found solace in Emma and the small rituals that grounded him: early morning runs, quiet dinners, moments spent reading or journaling. He also embraced mindfulness practices, recognizing the importance of mental clarity and emotional resilience. Jack's experiences abroad reshaped his understanding of leadership and innovation. He came to see that technology was not just about invention, but about listening to people's needs, adapting solutions to context, and nurturing relationships built on trust. This insight inspired a shift in company culture toward greater empathy and inclusivity. The company launched initiatives to partner directly with local communities, inviting feedback and collaboration rather than imposing solutions. One memorable project involved working with a village where access to electricity had transformed education and health outcomes. Jack visited the village school, seeing children study by the light of solar-powered lamps, their faces bright with curiosity and hope. These moments reaffirmed the deeper purpose behind his work. Yet the journey was far from smooth. Political instability, shifting regulations, and occasional setbacks tested the company's resilience. Jack often reflected on earlier lessons, the importance of humility, transparency, and perseverance. He encouraged his teams to embrace challenges as opportunities for learning and growth. This attitude fostered innovation and strengthened morale. In parallel, Jack continued advocating for policy changes to support sustainable energy worldwide. He participated in international forums, sharing insights and calling for cooperation across borders and sectors. His voice gained respect for its blend of technical expertise and human-centered vision. Amid these accomplishments, Jack and Emma celebrated their 5th anniversary. They reflected on the years of growth, sacrifice, and love that had shaped their journey. They dreamed aloud about building a family and creating a home grounded in shared values. These personal milestones deepened Jack's sense of balance and fulfillment. Jack's story increasingly resonated beyond the tech community. Media outlets highlighted the company's impact and Jack's leadership philosophy, inspiring others to pursue innovation with purpose. Invitations to speak at universities and conferences grew, offering platforms to share lessons learned and advocate for a more just and sustainable future. One particularly poignant moment came when Jack was invited to address a global summit on climate change. Standing before an audience of policymakers, activists, and scientists, Jack spoke passionately about the urgency of collaboration and innovation. He shared stories of communities transformed and the potential of technology to heal the planet if wielded with care and commitment. The speech was met with standing ovations and sparked new partnerships. Despite the acclaim, Jack remained focused on the work ahead. He knew that progress was incremental and required constant attention. The quiet man on the plane had taught him that leadership was not about accolades but about persistence, empathy, and vision. As the chapter of international expansion unfolded, Jack's journey became a testament to the power of resilience and the human spirit. His story continued to inspire, reminding all who heard it that true innovation begins with listening, grows through collaboration, and thrives when guided by heart. Jack's rise in the world of innovation brought with it a new set of challenges, many of which centered around trust, earning it, keeping it, and sometimes, rebuilding it. One morning, a confidential report landed on his desk revealing potential security vulnerabilities in the company's flagship energy system. The news was unsettling. If exploited, these flaws could jeopardize operations and public safety. Jack immediately convened a task force of top engineers and cybersecurity experts. The investigation was meticulous and demanding. As details emerged, Jack faced the harsh reality that even the most carefully designed systems were not infallible. The pressure was intense. Not only to fix the flaws quickly but also to manage communication with investors, partners, and regulators without causing panic. Jack took a transparent approach, deciding to disclose the issues publicly while assuring stakeholders that steps were underway to resolve them. This decision was met with mixed reactions. Some applauded the honesty, others questioned the company's competence. Jack weathered tough questions from the media and critical board members but remained resolute. Behind the scenes, the engineering team worked around the clock, patching vulnerabilities and conducting rigorous testing. Jack visited the development labs frequently, supporting the teams and emphasizing the importance of learning from setbacks. The experience was humbling, reinforcing the lesson that innovation is a continuous process of trial, error, and improvement. Parallel to the technical challenges, Jack's leadership was tested in unexpected ways. Internal disagreements about risk management and communication strategies surfaced, threatening team cohesion. Jack facilitated difficult conversations, encouraging openness and shared responsibility. He fostered a culture where mistakes were acknowledged as opportunities for growth rather than sources of blame. This approach helped rebuild trust within the company and strengthened its resilience. Meanwhile, Jack's public image evolved from that of a rising star to a seasoned leader capable of navigating crises with integrity. His candid interviews and thoughtful commentary earned respect even from skeptics. The episode became a defining moment, illustrating that true leadership shines not in perfection, but in how one responds to adversity. As the company emerged from the crisis, it implemented enhanced security protocols and launched initiatives to educate users about cybersecurity best practices. Jack also advocated for industry-wide collaboration to address shared vulnerabilities, recognizing that collective action was necessary to safeguard technological progress. Outside the office, Jack found balance in unexpected places. He joined a local hiking group, finding peace in nature's rhythms and the camaraderie of fellow enthusiasts. These excursions became a metaphor for his journey, sometimes steep and uncertain, but rewarding with perseverance and perspective. Emma continued to be his anchor. They navigated the complexities of their lives together, celebrating small victories and comforting each other in moments of doubt. Their relationship matured, grounded in mutual respect and deep understanding. On the personal front, Jack contemplated fatherhood and the legacy he wished to leave. He considered what values and lessons he wanted to impart to the next generation, not just about success, but about kindness, courage, and responsibility. This reflection deepened his resolve to build a company and a world that future children could be proud of. Professionally, the company pushed forward with new product lines and strategic partnerships. Jack embraced emerging technologies, integrating AI-driven analytics and smart grid capabilities. These innovations expanded the reach and impact of their clean energy solutions, bringing power to more homes and businesses around the globe. Throughout these developments, Jack remained focused on the human element, ensuring that technology served people, enhanced quality of life, and respected the environment. In a significant milestone, the company received a prestigious award for sustainable innovation, recognizing its contributions to combating climate change and fostering social equity. Jack accepted the honor with humility, crediting his team and partners. The recognition further amplified the company's mission and opened doors to new collaborations. Yet Jack knew that accolades were not endpoints but milestones on a larger journey. He continued to push for bold goals, aiming to transform energy infrastructure and inspire a global movement toward sustainability. This vision energized the company and attracted talent driven by purpose. One evening, reflecting on the years since that pivotal flight, Jack penned a letter to the quiet man who had sparked it all. He expressed gratitude for the unexpected encounter and the lessons learned. Though he doubted the letter would ever reach Elon, writing it was a meaningful act of closure and connection. Jack's story, once defined by humble beginnings and unexpected mentorship, had blossomed into a powerful narrative of resilience, innovation, and heart. He understood now that true success was not measured solely by achievements or wealth, but by the positive difference one made in the lives of others. The chapter closed with Jack poised to face the next horizon, ready to lead with vision, courage, and compassion. The transition into the next phase of Jack's journey was marked by a growing awareness of the intricate relationship between technology, society, and ethics. After years of developing cutting-edge energy solutions, Jack began to confront deeper questions about the long-term consequences of innovation. At a global technology summit, he encountered experts and thinkers who challenged him to think beyond immediate success and consider the broader impacts of his work on communities, privacy, and the environment. This encounter sparked a new internal dialogue. Jack started organizing roundtable discussions within his company, inviting ethicists, community leaders, and frontline workers to weigh in on product development and deployment. These conversations revealed blind spots and highlighted the need for more inclusive decision-making processes. Jack pushed to establish an ethics board tasked with overseeing not just compliance but also the social implications of emerging technologies. This shift was not without resistance. Some executives worried that the added scrutiny might slow innovation or complicate business strategies. Jack held firm, emphasizing that true leadership meant taking responsibility for unintended consequences and building trust through transparency. Over time, the company culture evolved. Ethical considerations became embedded in every phase, from design and testing to marketing and customer engagement. The team began to see these values not as constraints but as guiding principles that strengthened their work and reputation. This commitment also influenced Jack's personal philosophy. He dedicated time to studying philosophy and social sciences, seeking to broaden his understanding of human values and global challenges. He engaged with thinkers from diverse backgrounds, gaining insights into issues of equity, justice, and sustainability. Meanwhile, Jack's personal life reflected this growth. He and Emma welcomed their first child, a moment that transformed Jack's perspective profoundly. Holding his newborn, Jack felt an acute sense of responsibility, not only as a father but as a steward of the world his child would inherit. Parenthood deepened his empathy and fueled a renewed sense of purpose. Balancing the demands of family and leadership required adjustments. Jack became more intentional with his time, learning to delegate effectively and prioritize what truly mattered. Emma's support was unwavering, and together they created a nurturing environment that blended love, curiosity, and resilience. Professionally, the company expanded its outreach to underserved communities, launching educational programs and partnerships designed to empower local innovation. Jack believed that sustainable change required more than technology, it demanded building capacity and fostering agency. One initiative involved collaborating with schools to inspire the next generation of scientists and engineers, particularly among girls and marginalized groups. These efforts earned acclaim and made a tangible difference in communities around the world. As the company's footprint grew, so did its influence. Jack was invited to advise international organizations on technology policy and ethics. He approached these roles with humility, emphasizing dialogue and collaboration over top-down mandates. His reputation as a thoughtful and principled leader opened doors to shape conversations about the future of technology on a global scale. Yet Jack remained grounded. He frequently returned to the roots of his journey, the chance encounter with Elon Musk and the lessons of humility, kindness, and vision. These principles guided him through complex decisions and inspired a leadership style that prioritized people as much as profit. In quieter moments, Jack found joy in simple pleasures, family dinners, weekend hikes, and moments of reflection. These anchors kept him balanced amid the whirlwind of innovation and responsibility. Looking ahead, Jack envisioned a future where technology served as a bridge rather than a barrier, connecting people, uplifting communities, and preserving the planet. He recognized that this vision required ongoing effort, collaboration, and courage to confront difficult questions. The story of the quiet man in first class had come full circle. From a humble beginning to global impact, Jack's journey was a testament to the power of empathy, resilience, and ethical leadership. It was a story still unfolding, inviting all who heard it to consider their own roles in shaping a better world. As Jack prepared for the challenges and opportunities ahead, he carried with him the enduring belief that innovation, when guided by heart and purpose, could indeed change the world for the better. Jack's company had become a beacon of innovation, ethics, and global impact, but the journey was far from over. As the world faced escalating environmental crises and shifting geopolitical landscapes, Jack recognized that the challenges ahead would require not only technology but also leadership that could unite diverse stakeholders around common goals. This realization led him to embark on a new mission, fostering collaboration between governments, private sector, and civil society to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy. Early in the year, Jack was invited to join a high-profile international coalition aimed at creating actionable strategies for climate resilience. The coalition brought together leaders from different continents, each with unique perspectives and priorities. Jack's role was to advocate for technologies that balanced innovation with accessibility and equity. The meetings were intense, often marked by political tension and conflicting interests. Jack found himself navigating complex negotiations, listening deeply to concerns about economic impacts, social justice, and cultural contexts. His approach was to build bridges through empathy and shared purpose, emphasizing that the climate challenge was a collective human responsibility. One memorable session involved heated debates between representatives of fossil fuel-dependent regions and renewable energy advocates. Jack facilitated dialogue that acknowledged fears and uncertainties while presenting data-driven pathways toward sustainable development. His ability to create space for honest conversation earned him respect and helped forge consensus on critical issues. Meanwhile, back at his company, Jack launched a new initiative to develop adaptable energy solutions tailored to the needs of vulnerable communities facing climate-related disasters. This project combined advanced technology with community-led design, ensuring that solutions were practical, resilient, and culturally appropriate. Jack personally visited pilot sites, coastal towns battered by storms, drought-stricken agricultural regions, and remote villages cut off by floods. These visits reinforced the urgency of his work and the importance of listening to those most affected. The stories he heard, of loss, hope, and determination, deeply moved Jack and shaped the project's direction. As the initiative progressed, it attracted partnerships with NGOs, governments, and academic institutions, creating a network of shared expertise and resources. This collaborative model exemplified Jack's belief that meaningful change emerges from cooperation and respect. On the personal front, Jack balanced his expanding responsibilities with his growing family life. Emma and their child became central to his sense of purpose and grounding. Jack was intentional about carving out quality time, knowing that connection and presence were vital amid the demands of leadership. Parenting also enriched Jack's perspective on the future, motivating him to advocate fiercely for a world where his child and generations to come could thrive. Jack's visibility as a global leader continued to rise. He was featured in international media, invited to keynote conferences, and recognized with awards celebrating his commitment to sustainable innovation and ethical leadership. Yet Jack remained mindful of the pitfalls of fame and influence. He prioritized humility, authenticity, and service in all his endeavors. At company headquarters, Jack fostered a culture of continuous learning and innovation. He encouraged employees to challenge assumptions, experiment boldly, and embrace diversity of thought. This environment attracted passionate talent eager to make a difference. Jack also supported mental health and well-being initiatives, recognizing that sustainable success required caring for people as much as technology. During a particularly challenging period marked by global supply chain disruptions and economic uncertainty, Jack's leadership was tested once again. He convened cross-functional teams to develop adaptive strategies, communicated transparently with stakeholders, and reinforced the company's mission and values. His calm and resolute presence inspired confidence and solidarity. As the company navigated these headwinds, it emerged more agile and resilient, equipped to seize new opportunities in emerging markets and technologies. Reflecting on these experiences, Jack realized that the essence of leadership was not control but empowerment, creating conditions where others could excel and contribute their best. This insight shaped his mentoring of young leaders within the organization and beyond. Jack also remained connected to his roots. He regularly visited local schools and community centers, sharing his story and encouraging youth to dream big while grounding their ambitions in service to others. These engagements were a source of joy and inspiration, reminding Jack of the ripple effects of kindness and belief. One afternoon, Jack received an unexpected message from Elon Musk. The brief but warm exchange rekindled their friendship and underscored the profound impact of that first encounter years ago. They discussed current challenges and future possibilities, affirming their shared commitment to innovation for the greater good. This connection was a reminder that even the quietest moments could spark lifelong journeys. As the year drew to a close, Jack looked ahead with cautious optimism. The path remained complex and uncertain, but his conviction was stronger than ever. He believed in the power of collective action, ethical innovation, and compassionate leadership to create a more just and sustainable world. Jack's story had come to embody these principles, a testament to the potential within each of us to rise, learn, and lead with heart. The quiet man in first class, once mocked and underestimated, had become a catalyst for change on a global scale. And Jack knew that the greatest chapters were yet to be written, fueled by hope, resilience, and the courage to dream beyond limits. As Jack's influence grew, so did his understanding that technological progress alone was not enough to create lasting change. True transformation required nurturing a culture that embraced diversity, equity, and inclusion. Recognizing this, Jack launched a bold internal initiative aimed at reshaping the company's culture to reflect these values at every level. The initiative began with listening sessions, where employees across departments and regions shared their experiences and perspectives. Jack was struck by the stories, some inspiring, others painful, that highlighted barriers to inclusion and opportunities for growth. Determined to act, Jack appointed a chief diversity officer and assembled a dedicated team to develop comprehensive strategies. These included mentorship programs for underrepresented groups, bias training, and transparent recruitment processes designed to broaden the talent pipeline. Jack also encouraged open dialogues about privilege, identity, and systemic challenges, fostering a safe space where difficult conversations could lead to understanding and change. Implementing these initiatives required perseverance. Not everyone was immediately receptive. Some feared disruption or questioned the focus on social issues within a tech company. Jack addressed these concerns head-on, communicating clearly that diversity was integral to innovation and business success, not a distraction. Over time, the company culture began to shift. Employee engagement improved, collaboration flourished, and new ideas emerged from perspectives that had previously been overlooked. Jack saw firsthand how inclusion fueled creativity and strengthened problem-solving. Beyond the company, Jack advocated for diversity in the broader tech industry. He partnered with educational institutions and nonprofit organizations to create pathways for marginalized youth into STEM careers. These programs offered scholarships, internships, and hands-on learning experiences that opened doors and expanded horizons. Jack often spoke at events highlighting the importance of equity in innovation, challenging leaders to move beyond rhetoric to measurable action. Meanwhile, Jack's family life was enriched by the diverse community they had become part of. Emma and Jack introduced their child to cultures, languages, and traditions from around the world, nurturing curiosity and empathy. These experiences reinforced Jack's belief that understanding and valuing difference was key to building a more compassionate society. On the innovation front, the company continued to push boundaries. Jack championed research into emerging technologies that could further reduce environmental impact and enhance accessibility. Projects ranged from advanced battery storage solutions to decentralized microgrids designed for remote areas. Each endeavor was guided by the principles of sustainability, equity, and human-centered design. In a significant breakthrough, the company developed a new energy system that integrated artificial intelligence to optimize usage based on real-time data and user preferences. This innovation not only improved efficiency but also empowered users to take control of their energy consumption, aligning with Jack's vision of technology as a tool for empowerment rather than control. The launch of this system was met with enthusiasm and quickly adopted in pilot communities. Jack took pride in the collaboration between engineers, designers, and users that made the project a success. The experience reinforced the value of inclusive innovation processes. Despite successes, challenges persisted. Regulatory hurdles, market fluctuations, and geopolitical tensions required constant vigilance and adaptability. Jack learned to navigate these complexities with patience and strategic foresight, drawing on his experience and the collective wisdom of his team. At times, setbacks were inevitable, but Jack's resilience and commitment to mission kept the company moving forward. Reflecting on the journey, Jack often returned to the lessons learned from his chance encounter with Elon Musk, the power of humility, the importance of listening, and the courage to challenge assumptions. These principles continued to guide his leadership and personal growth. The company's story became a beacon for others seeking to balance innovation with integrity and impact. As Jack looked toward the future, he envisioned a world where technology served as a bridge across divides, fostering connection, opportunity, and healing. He remained dedicated to nurturing the next generation of leaders who would carry this vision forward with heart and wisdom. Jack's journey was a testament to the transformative power of empathy, courage, and unwavering belief in the potential for good. From a quiet man in first class to a global catalyst for change, his story invited all who heard it to reconsider what it meant to lead, innovate, and live with purpose. And as the world faced new horizons, Jack stood ready, ever curious, ever humble, ever committed to building a better tomorrow. With the company firmly established as a leader in sustainable innovation and ethical technology, Jack found himself at a crossroads: how to scale impact while preserving the integrity and culture that had been painstakingly cultivated. The pressure to grow rapidly, expand markets, and increase shareholder value was immense. Yet, Jack was determined that growth would not come at the expense of the company's core values. To navigate this tension, Jack embraced a philosophy of conscious scaling. He believed that growth should be deliberate, measured, and aligned with purpose. This meant prioritizing partnerships and projects that advanced sustainability and equity, even if they offered slower returns. Jack worked closely with his executive team to refine business strategies, focusing on long-term impact rather than short-term gains. This approach required difficult conversations with investors accustomed to more aggressive expansion. Jack's transparency and conviction won over many, though some remained skeptical. He understood that not every stakeholder would be aligned, but he was willing to risk short-term friction for enduring success. Conscious scaling also meant deepening community engagement. Jack and his team developed programs that empowered local entrepreneurs and technicians, providing resources and training to support the deployment and maintenance of clean energy solutions. These initiatives fostered economic development and built local capacity, ensuring that technology adoption was sustainable and culturally relevant. Jack personally visited many of these communities, listening to their stories and learning from their wisdom. These experiences reinforced the importance of humility and partnership in global innovation. Simultaneously, Jack continued to nurture the company's culture of inclusion and collaboration. He expanded mentorship programs and leadership development initiatives, particularly aimed at elevating voices historically underrepresented in tech leadership. Jack believed that diverse leadership was essential not only for social justice but for smarter, more creative decision-making. He took pride in watching emerging leaders thrive and contribute their unique perspectives. In the public arena, Jack became an influential voice advocating for systemic change. He engaged with policymakers to promote regulations that incentivized sustainable innovation and protected vulnerable communities. Jack also collaborated with other industry leaders to establish ethical standards and best practices for emerging technologies, such as AI and renewable energy systems. His efforts contributed to building trust and accountability within the rapidly evolving tech landscape. On the personal side, Jack and Emma's family grew, bringing new joys and challenges. Parenthood deepened Jack's empathy and patience, teaching him lessons that translated into his leadership style. He became more attuned to balance, between ambition and presence, innovation and reflection, work and life. These insights strengthened his relationships and enriched his vision for the future. Jack's story continued to inspire many. He received invitations to speak at universities, conferences, and global forums, sharing his journey and insights. He emphasized that innovation was not just about technology but about values, community, and responsibility. His message resonated widely, particularly with young people eager to make a difference. As the company prepared to enter new international markets, Jack faced new complexities. Different cultural contexts, regulatory environments, and economic realities demanded tailored approaches. Jack's leadership emphasized listening, respect, and adaptability. He empowered regional teams to develop locally relevant solutions while maintaining the company's overarching mission. This decentralized approach strengthened global impact and fostered innovation from diverse sources. However, the journey was not without setbacks. Market fluctuations, geopolitical tensions, and technological disruptions occasionally disrupted plans. Jack embraced these challenges as opportunities to learn and evolve. He encouraged a mindset of resilience and agility within his teams, fostering a culture that viewed obstacles as catalysts for creativity. Looking back, Jack often reflected on the moments that had shaped his path, from the initial awkward encounter on the plane to the mentorship he received, the crises he weathered, and the victories he celebrated. These experiences were threads woven into a larger tapestry of growth, learning, and service. The quiet man in first class, once underestimated and mocked, had become a leader whose vision and values resonated across industries and continents. Jack knew that his journey was part of a collective story, a movement toward a future where technology and humanity advanced hand in hand. As he prepared for the next chapter, Jack remained committed to leading with heart, humility, and unwavering belief in the power of kindness and courage to transform the world. The final chapter of Jack's story was not an ending but a new beginning, one defined by reflection, legacy, and the enduring impact of a life led with purpose. After years of relentless innovation, leadership, and advocacy, Jack stepped back from day-to-day operations to focus on mentoring the next generation and deepening his involvement in global initiatives that aligned with his values. This transition was both challenging and rewarding. Letting go of direct control meant trusting others to carry forward the vision, a test of faith in the culture and leadership he had helped build. Jack devoted himself to creating spaces for dialogue and learning, hosting retreats and workshops that brought together diverse voices, innovators, activists, artists, and thinkers, to explore how technology could serve as a force for good. These gatherings became incubators for new ideas and collaborations, continuing the ripple effect of Jack's journey. Throughout this period, Jack remained grounded by his family and community. Emma and their children were central to his sense of fulfillment and joy, and Jack treasured the quiet moments that life offered outside the public eye. He also returned frequently to places where the company's work had made tangible differences, reconnecting with communities and individuals who had inspired him. These visits reinforced the profound human dimension of his mission and the importance of humility and gratitude. Jack's reflections were often shared through writing and speaking engagements. He articulated lessons learned about the interplay of innovation, ethics, and empathy. He emphasized that true progress required listening, both to technology's possibilities and to the voices of those most affected. Jack's story became a touchstone for discussions about leadership in a complex, interconnected world. One of Jack's lasting legacies was the cultivation of a new leadership paradigm. One that balanced ambition with compassion, disruption with stability, and innovation with inclusion. He championed leaders who prioritized values and relationships as much as results. This shift influenced not only his company but also a broader movement toward responsible and human-centered innovation. Looking back to the day he was mocked by a stranger in first class, Jack smiled at the irony and the lessons embedded in that moment. What began as a humiliating experience had sparked a journey of growth, courage, and impact far beyond anything he could have imagined. Jack's story was a reminder that our greatest challenges can be catalysts for transformation, and that kindness and vision can emerge from the quietest places. As the world continued to evolve, Jack remained a steady presence, listening, learning, and leading with heart. His journey was far from over. It was a living story, inviting all who heard it to embrace their own potential to make a difference. In the end, Jack understood that the true measure of success was not fame or fortune but the lives touched, the values upheld, and the hope inspired. The quiet man in first class had become a symbol of resilience, integrity, and the transformative power of believing in something greater than oneself. His legacy was a call to action, to innovate boldly, lead ethically, and love deeply. And with that, Jack stepped forward into the future, ready to write the next chapter, not alone, but alongside a world awakened to possibility and purpose. As Jack settled into this new phase of life, he found himself reflecting more and more on what legacy truly meant, not just the impact of his company or his public achievements, but the deeper, quieter influence he had on individuals and communities around the world. The journey that began with a chance encounter and a mocking remark in first class had grown into something far greater than he had ever imagined. Jack now saw that his story was less about him and more about the ideas and values that had taken root and begun to flourish. One crisp autumn morning, Jack woke early, inspired to take a walk through a nearby park where the vibrant colors of changing leaves seemed to echo the transformations unfolding in his own life. As he strolled beneath the canopy of red and gold, he thought about the countless people he had met, young innovators, community leaders, families rebuilding after disasters, and how each interaction had shaped him as much as he had influenced them. Jack understood that leadership was a conversation, not a monologue, and that true progress required listening with an open heart. With this in mind, Jack began to envision a new initiative. A global fellowship program designed to empower emerging changemakers from diverse backgrounds. This fellowship would provide resources, mentorship, and a platform for collaboration, nurturing a network of leaders equipped to tackle the world's most pressing challenges with creativity and compassion. Jack spent weeks planning the framework, drawing on lessons from his own experiences and conversations. He wanted the fellowship to be accessible, inclusive, and grounded in real-world impact. The goal was to create a community that transcended borders and disciplines, united by a shared commitment to ethical innovation and social justice. When Jack announced the fellowship, the response was overwhelming. Applications poured in from every corner of the globe, entrepreneurs developing clean water technologies, activists advocating for indigenous rights, educators transforming rural schools, and artists using storytelling to inspire change. Jack was humbled and energized by the diversity and passion of the applicants. The selection process was rigorous but joyful. Jack and a team of advisors engaged deeply with each candidate, eager to understand their visions and challenges. The inaugural class represented a tapestry of cultures, ideas, and experiences, reflecting the complex realities and hopeful possibilities of the modern world. As the fellows gathered for their first retreat, Jack witnessed the power of connection and shared purpose. He facilitated workshops on leadership, ethics, and collaboration, but mostly he listened, learning as much from the fellows as they learned from him. The energy in the room was electric, a testament to the potential unlocked when people are given support and trust. Outside the fellowship, Jack remained active in global conversations about technology and society. He contributed to policy discussions, advised nonprofits, and continued to speak publicly about the need for a human-centered approach to innovation. His voice was recognized as one that bridged worlds, business and community, science and art, tradition and progress. Back home, Jack's family continued to be his anchor. Emma and their children thrived in a household filled with curiosity, love, and a shared commitment to making the world better. Jack cherished the simple joys, weekend hikes, family dinners, bedtime stories, that grounded him amidst his expansive ambitions. One particularly poignant moment came when Jack's child asked, "Dad, why did you keep going when things got really hard?" Jack smiled, realizing that the answer lay not in grand speeches but in everyday choices, to be kind when it was easier to be harsh, to listen when it was tempting to speak over, to believe in possibility even when hope seemed scarce. This quiet strength, Jack knew, was the foundation of all meaningful change. As the years passed, the fellowship flourished, producing leaders who launched impactful projects, inspired their communities, and carried forward Jack's vision. Their successes were a living testament to the ripple effects of mentorship and the power of investing in people. Jack also saw the seeds of a broader movement taking root, a shift toward more ethical, inclusive, and compassionate approaches across industries and cultures. The quiet man in first class, once mocked and underestimated, had sparked a wave of transformation reaching far beyond what anyone had imagined. In quieter moments, Jack sometimes pondered the irony and mystery of life. The twists of fate, the moments of doubt and courage, the connections that changed everything. He recognized that no journey was linear or predictable. Each person's story was a thread in the vast tapestry of human experience, woven together by empathy and hope. One evening, as Jack watched the sun set over the city skyline, he felt a profound sense of gratitude. For the challenges that tested him, the people who supported him, and the chance to be part of something greater. He knew that the future remained unwritten and full of possibility, and he was eager to continue learning, growing, and contributing. Jack's legacy was no longer confined to a single company or achievement. It lived in the hearts and actions of those he had touched, in the courage to dream, the commitment to kindness, and the belief that even the quietest voice could change the world. And so, with humility and hope, Jack stepped forward into new horizons, ready to listen, to lead, and to inspire the next chapter of a story still unfolding. As Jack entered the twilight years of his remarkable journey, he found himself drawn ever more deeply into questions that had long simmered beneath the surface, questions about the true meaning of success, the nature of legacy, and what it really meant to live a life well lived. The accolades, the innovations, the global impact, all were milestones, but Jack sensed that the heart of his story lay somewhere quieter, more profound. It was in the relationships he had nurtured, the lives he had touched, and the humility with which he carried his accomplishments. One crisp morning, Jack sat by the window of his study, a cup of coffee steaming in his hands, reflecting on a recent conversation with a young fellow from his global leadership program. The young woman, full of idealism and energy, had asked him, "What do you wish you had known at the beginning of your journey?" Jack smiled gently, recognizing the earnestness in her eyes. He realized that his answer was not about strategies or tactics but about mindset. He wished he had understood earlier that success was not a destination but a continuous process of growth, learning, and giving back. That it was not defined by wealth or fame but by the positive difference made in the world and the kindness shown along the way. This insight guided Jack as he dedicated his remaining years to teaching and mentoring, focusing on cultivating wisdom, empathy, and resilience in emerging leaders. He believed that the world's challenges required not only technical skill but profound emotional intelligence and moral clarity. Jack crafted a curriculum that combined practical innovation with ethical reflection, inviting participants to explore their values, purpose, and the impact of their decisions on communities and the planet. Throughout his teachings, Jack emphasized the importance of vulnerability and authenticity in leadership. He shared stories of his own failures and doubts, underscoring that true strength comes from acknowledging imperfections and learning from them. These lessons resonated deeply, inspiring a new generation of changemakers who saw leadership as a calling rather than a title. Jack also began to write a memoir, not just a chronicle of events but a heartfelt exploration of what he had learned about life, love, and legacy. The writing process was both cathartic and illuminating. It allowed him to piece together the mosaic of moments, some joyful, some painful, that had shaped his journey. He hoped that his story would serve as a beacon for others navigating their own paths through uncertainty and complexity. On a personal level, Jack prioritized time with Emma and their children, savoring the gift of presence. They traveled less but connected more deeply, sharing conversations that ranged from dreams for the future to reflections on the past. Jack found joy in the simple rhythms of family life, cooking meals together, tending a garden, watching sunsets. These moments reminded him that meaning often resides in the ordinary, the everyday acts of love and care. Despite stepping back from public roles, Jack remained engaged with the broader world through quiet acts of service and advocacy. He supported initiatives focused on education, environmental stewardship, and social justice, often behind the scenes. Jack believed that change could be seeded in many ways, not always through grand gestures but through consistent, humble commitment. One afternoon, during a community event celebrating the company's 10th anniversary of sustainability achievements, Jack was invited to speak. Looking out at the crowd, employees, partners, neighbors, and friends, he reflected on how far they had come together. Jack spoke not of his own accomplishments but of collective effort, shared vision, and the power of collaboration. He urged everyone to remember that every action, no matter how small, contributed to a larger movement toward a more just and compassionate world. The applause was warm and heartfelt, affirming that Jack's influence extended beyond technology into the realms of human connection and hope. As time went on, Jack's health gently declined, but his spirit remained vibrant. He embraced this new chapter with grace, surrounded by loved ones and supported by a community that cherished his wisdom and kindness. In his final days, Jack often returned to the question that had first sparked his journey: what if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side? Through a life of trials and triumphs, Jack had discovered the answer lay not in material possessions or status but in the strength of relationships, the courage to persevere, and the capacity to love. His story closed with a quiet but powerful truth: that our greatest legacy is not what we achieve alone but what we inspire in others. Jack's passing was met with an outpouring of remembrance from around the world. Tributes poured in from colleagues, friends, and those whose lives he had touched, testaments to a life lived with purpose and heart. But Jack would have preferred not to be remembered solely for his successes. Rather, for his humility, empathy, and unwavering belief in the goodness within people. In the years that followed, Jack's teachings continued to inspire, his fellowship program thrived, and his company upheld the values he championed. His memoir became a touchstone for aspiring leaders, a reminder that greatness is found not in self-promotion but in service, kindness, and courage. And so, the quiet man once mocked in first class left behind a legacy that defied expectations, a legacy of love, learning, and the transformative power of living authentically. His final lesson echoed across generations: true success is measured not by what you accumulate but by the lives you uplift and the hope you kindle. Jack's journey invites us all to consider how we might lead with heart, embrace vulnerability, and walk boldly into the unknown, knowing that, in the end, it is the quiet acts of courage and compassion that shape the world. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?